Boundaries aren't something you suddenly wake up good at. I don't know who to draw that line. There's something you practice after you've been tired for too long. And we all know when we get fed up or when we're over something, you know, we start to place some things in order, right? And if you're listening to this feeling stretched thin, yes, honey, this episode is for you. Let's talk about reframing boundaries, right? We've been taught that boundaries are confrontational, that they'll upset people, that they'll make us too much, right? But what they don't tell you is boundaries are actually information. They tell others how to be in relationship with you, and they tell your body that you're paying attention. Because believe it or not, without boundaries, your nervous system stays alert. It becomes hypervigilant. It continues to scan and you start bracing. With boundaries, your body learns, I don't have to stay on guard. And that's not emotional. That's actually biological safety. Let me tell you something about myself because this is something that is heavy, 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 heavy for me in 2026. And for me, boundaries was always difficult because I used to have people pleaser tendencies, right? And sometimes I still struggle with it at times, but at times is because I have placed boundaries. That's why at times is now in my vocabulary because at times there are moments where I am okay with flexing certain situational boundaries, right? There are hard firm boundaries, there are non-negotiables, like there's flexible ones. There's wiggle room sometimes depending on what it is. So I used to over explain my boundaries, right? I used to say that, oh, like, well, this is why, like, it just because this, like, because of X, Y, and Z, and it makes me feel like this and that, and da 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 da, like all the thirds. And then I thought if I said it perfectly, right? Kindly enough or gently enough or explained it great enough that it would land. Woo! What I learned is this, guys. People who respect you, they don't need convincing. You don't need to over explain and say, hey, this is why, or, this, it makes me feel like you don't have to do any of that for people who respect and love you. Because people who don't respect and love you will always ask for more access. They will always push your boundaries. They would always ask you, well, why? Or how come? Or what's making you. Nah, no, 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 no. If people love and respect you, they will say, you know what? You are absolutely right. If that's what it takes, then okay. That realization changed everything for me, right? When I started realizing that when I put my foot down or when I just simply said, no, that's not going to work for me, I started losing people left to right and not to like, death or anything, but just relationship wise. I used to have a lot of quote unquote friends. I used to I don't know if, I still socially drink now, but there was a point where I stopped drinking for a couple years and I wasn't going out as much because that was part of the cycle. And I realized that when I stopped doing those things that made me like super personable, super flashy, super, oh, she's fun, she's always a great time. And I stopped doing that and I was like, hey guys, no, I'm not going out. Or hey, I actually don't want to do that. Hey, I would rather do this. People started dropping like flies. And obviously you take it a little bit harder, right? It's frustrating because you start to feel alone. It's like, damn, like what did I do? Like, am I too much, right? Am I asking for too much? Am I demanding a certain type of love? Am I hard to love because this is what I'm asking and I know this is what it takes? But one thing I had to learn and still kind of practice and remind myself is that some boundaries aren't about other people, right? They're about how we talk to ourselves and how late we stay up and how much we push past exhaustion. So, like, when I say that I've had to learn that boundaries aren't just with other people, it's with myself too. Like, those boundaries that I place protect me as well because of my people pleasing tendencies, right? And sometimes we talk ourselves into it and we don't want to be that negative Nancy or we don't want to be, the party pooper, but like sometimes we have to enforce our boundaries with ourselves because if we don't enforce those boundaries with ourselves, how do we expect other people to respect our boundaries, right? So what I've learned in how to maintain boundaries with other people is I started practicing those things with myself. So I've learned that the way I talk to myself is very important, right? Um, every time I respect a boundary of mine with my body, right? My body's like, yo, I'm tired. And I'm like, no, I want to watch one more episode because it's so good. But my body's like, we need to go lay down. Like, let's go to sleep because our eyes can barely stay open right now. I feel how heavy they are. And then knowing I'm going to be super exhausted in the morning. What is that telling me? Okay, my boundary is saying, "Hey, Mila, at this moment when you start to feel that your eyes are this or you start to feel this heaviness that you just want to go to bed, please go to bed." Right? Um do not force yourself to stay up because it's good because you can watch it tomorrow, you know? And so that was one of the hardest things I've had to like fight, because internal boundaries are often hard, like they're the most hardest, right? But at the same time, they're the most healing. And what I've learned on this journey with boundaries, um, it's a love language, y'all. Like boundaries don't make you cold. They don't make you cold, right? They make you sustainable. And sustainability is an act of love. I would like for you to ask yourself, where am I saying yes when my body is saying no? And let the answer be simple. Mhm. Yeah. Boundaries aren't walls. They're actually bridges that keep you connected without burning out. And choosing yourself doesn't mean losing love. It means redefining it. Yeah. I like how that sounds too, guys. Well, I want you to think about what is one boundary you can set with yourself and what is one boundary you can set with others and be more intentional, right? Not, I'm going to start saying no. Okay. No to what? When, again, let me give you an example. When I am invited to go somewhere and I don't know if I even want to do anything that night or that weekend or that day, I'm going to take a second before I commit to that decision I make. Boom. Simple as that. Think about something for yourself. Comment down below if you can. Share it with a neighbor and let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what your boundaries are. Until then, I'll talk to y'all later.